Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Digits Dynasty Podcast, where we are counting down the greatest athletes to wear each and every uniform number, regardless of the sport, regardless of the league. Today we are looking at the number 31. I'm here with Curtis, who brought 31 flavors of Baskin-Robbins ice cream with him to the recording today.
Yes, but mint chocolate chip is all gone, so no 30.
It's 30. There's still some cookie dough though.
I saved the rest. Yes, cookie dough. We changed the flavors. It's not always the same 31 flavors. But mint chocolate chip is now missing.
All right. As long as there's moose tracks and cookie dough, we'll be okay.
Husky tracks.
Husky tracks. I think that's copyrighted up at UConn right now. 31. It's going to be a good number.
31. Yeah. When I heard 31, I first thought of basketball with the obvious choice of Reggie Miller. As I took a deeper dive, I was surprised at how many great football players also wore 31, and then finding out that 31 is the common number for the goalkeeper, which I did not know.
Yeah, there were quite a few goalies that are well-known, had great careers, Hall of Famers. That surprised me as well. No secret that we're both not the biggest hockey experts, but we're willing to learn, and we'll learn what all this hockey stuff is about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enough of a fan to know who should be in the Hall of Fame and who shouldn't, but I did not know that 31 was the goalkeeper number. I was very surprised by that because I don't see a lot of goalkeepers today wearing number 31, I guess.
That is true.
So I guess that's come and gone. But I also don't know why 31 is the number for the goalkeeper.
Yeah, that is, it seems like, you give the first 10, 15 guys their numbers and then we'll be the next one. I think number 1 is a common goalie number too. But yeah, 31 and 1, kind of odd. Also a lot of pitchers. A lot of major league pitchers have been 31 as well. Some notable guys we'll get to in just a minute. 31 in general, though, we mentioned Baskin-Robbins, famous for their 31 flavors of ice cream. It's called 31 ice cream in Japan. They're actually the first to introduce the ice cream cake to the public. So that's a good thing we can thank them for. The ice cream cake is one of my favorite types of cake.
Big fan of the ice cream cake. Carvel being usually the brand of choice here in my local grocery store.
Fudgy the Whale, right?
Sure. And then obviously Dairy Queen always had a nice selection of ice cream cakes and dilly bars. Big fan, but Baskin-Robbins really revolutionizing the game there with the ice cream cake.
Yeah, so they were one of the first to like let you sample flavors too. They kind of had those mini spoons, kind of let you sample as many flavors as you want before you pick your ultimate decision, which, to be fair, you mentioned that there's no mint chocolate chip left. How often are you? I feel like when I go to an ice cream place these days, I'm not really testing flavors. I stick with my like 1 or 2. I'm not really trying any new flavors here. I know it works.
I'm with you. I know what I want by now. You know, I've reached an age where I know what to expect of what flavors are going to be there, and I've pretty much already made up my mind. You know, it really is just coming down to a matter of, do I want it in a cup or a cone tonight? I've started to go with more milkshakes lately.
Oh, okay. Still mint chocolate chip?
No.
Okay.
Strawberry.
Ooh. Twala 31 is a popular game in the Arab world, a board game played on a backgammon board. It seemed just like a similar backgammon. Thought that was pretty interesting. I know last week we discussed that you really know 0 people in Japan. But if you happen to know anybody in the Netherlands, the code for international direct dial phone calls is 31 to the Netherlands.
I don't, but I'd like to.
All right.
I hear they make pretty good cheese in the Netherlands.
We're going to keep doing this every week until you know somebody in another country.
We're going to go through a lot of countries.
Okay. We'll get to the U.S.
A lot of countries.
31 atomic number is gallium, symbol Ga. It's big in semiconductors. It's kind of in the same family as aluminum. So that's kind of what that's used for. When I was looking up stuff about gallium, I read that there's a pretty well-known practical joke among chemists. You know, this is going to be good. They would fashion gallium spoons and then use them to serve tea to unsuspecting guests. And since gallium has a similar appearance to its lighter cousin aluminum, these spoons then melt in the hot tea. And I can imagine chemists doing this and just like going into the office the next day and be like, oh my gosh, guys, guess what I just did?
I mean,
and they'd be like,
this.
oh my gosh, Bill, I can't believe you did it again.
I love this for scientists to be able to have a sense of humor. What happens if the spoon melts and you still take a drink?
Oh, that's probably actually not good.
I'm assuming that it's not like going to be
that's not funny
fatal,
anymore.
a fatal prank.
And then just a sense of, I know the number is not a billion because you can't really fit billion on the back of a jersey, but a billion seconds takes 31 years and 8 months to kind of get to if you were going to count a million seconds. And a million seconds is just 12 days. That's crazy how big a billion is.
It really puts into perspective the difference between a million and a billion.
Yeah, you think, oh, I'm a millionaire, I'll be a billionaire, but I don't think you will. That's a lot of money, or that's a lot of zeros. And then, of course, there's 31 letters in the Cyrillic alphabet, which is the Russian alphabet. So they got a couple extra ones from us. I think 26 does just fine, but maybe those Russians need 5 extra letters for some reason.
Well, when you see things spelled out, they're obnoxiously long, so
That's
they
true.
do like to add letters. You know, in English, you can be dressed to the nines,
Like I usually am.
always. But in France, this expression relates to the number 31 instead. So you're dressed to the 31. Don't know why. California was the 31st state
Well, it's a good state.
to join the Union. And not only is it the 31st state, but the first 2 letters are C and A, which are the third and first letters of the alphabet.
There you go.
31.
It's like conspiracy right there.
Wow, blowing your mind. And then I got the 31st president, Herbert Hoover.
I was going to guess that one.
Herbert Hoover.
And H, of course, is the 8th letter. Oh, no, I guess that doesn't continue. He was a pretty good president, though. He loved vacuuming.
Was he? There was a Great Depression during his presidency.
You didn't get my vacuuming joke there.
He vacuumed the economy out of the country.
Just with the Hoover. He would use the Hoover to vacuum the White House.
That's what they used to call me at shortstop, the Hoover. So I was sucking balls up all day long.
This is a family podcast.
And 31 is the name of a horror film produced by Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie.
Do you like scary movies?
I do not.
No?
My name is Blair. I've never seen the Blair Witch Project. And I don't know. I feel like there's something about the fact that they're, I don't want to say real, but I feel like they could be real. And I think that doesn't mesh well with me.
See, I'm okay with like scary movies that are really unbelievable.
Huh.
I used to watch scary movies all the time as a teenager and in my 20s. I got married. My wife really isn't.
And now you're
into
living
scary
it?
movies.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm not living a horror now, but my wife really isn't into scary movies.
Okay.
So we kind of made a deal that once a year on Halloween, we'll watch a scary movie together, and that's the only time.
And those are the nights she decides to fall asleep on the couch watching the movie.
It's happened, yeah. But yes, the scarier ones are the more realistic ones. I watched one called Strangers. I think it's called Strangers.
My brother, when that first came out, he sent me the preview for that. The preview was enough for me to be like, this is not going to happen in my lifetime.
Oh.
I feel like you kept seeing the guys come up in the background, like behind the scenes with like the burlap sacks on their head.
Yeah, something like that. It was no good because I grew up in rural Indiana, and
yeah, that's a horror film in itself.
This is something where this random house was chosen, and they, I think there's a line in the movie where they say, "Why are you doing this to us?" And the killers respond, "Because you were home." And it's like, oh my gosh, I want no part of this.
That's why I'm never home.
Right. So I just don't go home.
Just drive around all the time.
Yeah, nothing bad can happen to me if I don't go home now.
To learn about the horror film that's set in a car.
Jeepers Creepers, aren't they in a car in that one?
Dude, Where's My Car? Is that a horror
Dude,
film?
Where's My Car?
Can't find your car.
Well, then there's what's the one with Kurt Russell, the Quentin Tarantino movie, where he drives around and follows and stalks the women. Death Proof.
One I've heard about, I've not actually seen. Too scared for that stuff.
So you're just, the thought of watching these movies is scary enough.
And I'm born on Halloween, so you'd think that
this is true
in itself would be enough for me to like horror films. It could kind of be like
in your blood,
in
like
my blood.
You're born under a full moon on Halloween. I mean, you do turn into a werewolf every year.
That's just because I forget to shave. All right, should we move on to sports?
Ice cream, movies. I like where this is going.
I know we got to talk
going.
about the sports though. Unless we can Digits Dynasty the 31 flavors. We'll in depth them all.
We could break anything down into numbers, But yes, this is a sports podcast. Let's get into the sports.
All right. What are we starting with?
Hockey.
Hockey, okay.
Because I don't see anyone in hockey making it to the finals, but there are some people that I think we do need to mention and some things we need to talk about.
Grant Furr had a 19-year career. He had started his career with the number 1 and then swapped to the number 31 for the last 16 years of his career. He was with the Oilers, Leafs, Sabres, Kings, Blues, and Flames, all wearing the number 31. He was a 4-time Stanley Cup winner. He was the first black hockey player to win the Stanley Cup and the first introduced into the Hall of Fame, and named one of the 100 greatest players in 2017. Billy Smith, he was the second pick of the Islanders when they first came out. All 17 years he spent with the Islanders was wearing the number 31. He was the first NHL goaltender to be credited with scoring a goal. In 1979, in a game between the Islanders and the Colorado Rockies, the hockey team, the Rockies had pulled their goalie for an extra attacker. After a delayed penalty was called on the Islanders, the puck deflected off of Smith's chest protector into the corner, and one of the Rockies guys picked up the puck and accidentally made a blind pass from the corner into the opposing zone to the blue line, and nobody, of course, was there to receive the pass, so the puck sailed all the way down the length of the ice, right into the net. As Smith had been the last Islanders player to touch the puck, he was credited with the goal. I know in the years since, there's probably a handful of goalies who have scored goals.
Love seeing the hockey goalie score a goal. I did see a highlight of his soccer goalie booting one, and it just like bounced a couple times, and then the guy missed it.
Is that Tim Howard?
Was it?
I think there was a Tim Howard one. I think there's only been 4 or 5 goalies in soccer who have scored goals.
That's super impressive.
I think it was a really windy day too. Again, took a bigger bounce than he was expecting. Billy Smith, also a 4-time Cup winner. He had won the Best Goaltender Award, the Conn Smythe Trophy for the MVP. He, too, in 2017, he was named one of the 100 greatest NHL players of all time.
Billy Smith wore it for 17 years. Some of these guys didn't wear it their whole career. But Billy Smith coming in with 17 years at the number.
Got Curtis Joseph, Cujo.
Okay. Speaking of horror movies.
I know. Speaking of horror movies, he wore number 31 with 7 teams over 19 years, had just under 1,000 games played. Cujo, you like that nickname? I feel like when you kind of first think about it, it's pretty simple. Obviously, it's the first 2 letters of each of his names. Has a little bit more meaning when you kind of calls back to Stephen King, of course. Whereas I feel like when you think about like A-Rod, where you just kind of put some letters of their names together, it's kind of doesn't have the same feel to it. But I feel like Cujo means something a little bit more.
Yeah, A-Rod's a little lazy. Cujo, considering the first syllable of his first name is not Ku.
It's C-U.
I think there's
just a
little bit more creativity. And Cujo, that's a pretty cool nickname. I mean, I don't know if he played like a dog or if he, why he got the nickname, but Cujo is a cool nickname.
I think his hockey mask was painted with like a rabid dog, though. Oh, so he played into it.
That's cold. That's tough. I love the old school hockey goalie masks.
Like the Jason mask?
I like the Jason. Here we are with scary movies. Oh my gosh,
again. This is crazy.
I love
Halloween, 31st.
Halloween, October 31.
Oh my gosh. What is going on here? I'm getting a little worried. You hear that? Last guy I had for hockey, Carey Price, another goalie, spent 15 years with the Canadiens. In 2015, he won basically any award you could win as a hockey player. The Ted Lindsay Award, William Jennings Trophy, Venezia Trophy, Hart Trophy, first goaltender in history to win all 4 awards in the same season. He won the gold medal for Canada in Sochi in 2014, but another solid goaltender wearing the number 31. Yeah, pretty cool when a number is kind of iconic like that of like, all right, if you're one of the better goalies, this is what you're going to pick. I think you got to live up to that hype too. You got to like live the jersey.
No, yeah, they give you that 31. You better be darn good. Don't screw it up now.
Don't go Cujo on that. I feel like a solid step from hockey is baseball, of course. Some solid baseball players, a lot of pitchers. First one that comes to mind, Max Scherzer. He played with the Nationals, Dodgers, and now with the Rangers. Still current, so he could be kind of dropped off a little bit, but still have some good stats for the rest of his career. 10 of his 17 years was spent with the number 31. He's won 3 Cy Youngs total. One of them was for the Tigers, so we don't count that. But 2 World Series championships with the Nationals and Rangers. So he's got some good awards, some good hardware that he's won with the number 31 on his back. Rob Nen, closer. He was kind of, I feel like, most well known with the Giants. He did wear the number 31 for the Rangers, the Marlins, and the Giants for his 10-year career. Probably highlighted by his World Series win with the Marlins in 1997. But he had 314 career saves with a 2.98 ERA. Pretty solid for a closer. To have a 10-year career as a closer, I feel like is pretty good. Garry Maddox. You thought I was going to say Greg, but we're going to start with Garry.
I wasn't expecting Garry.
He is of course, his nickname is the Secretary of Defense. You've probably heard the famous quote, 2/3 of the earth is covered by water. The other third is covered by Garry Maddox. Maybe you haven't heard that. I don't know.
No, but I like that.
He won the Roberto Clemente Award in 1986, 8 consecutive Gold Glove Award winner from 1975 to 1982, won the World Series in 1980. When he made it into the majors, he took over for Willie Mays as the center fielder for the Giants, which, needless to say, have some giant shoes to fill. I know Willie Mays was a pretty solid defender as well. So those Giants really had, for decades, they had some pretty solid glove work in center field. Definitely a tough act to follow when you're following Willie Mays, who is arguably the greatest baseball player of all time.
Yeah, and playing with style. So that's a tough follow.
Garry Maddox is a barbecue chef. For a number of years, he has hosted the Garry Maddox Barbecue Challenge, yearly fundraiser held outside of Citizens Bank Park before a home Phillies game where local restaurants and amateur chefs compete in various categories. We should give that a shot.
I love some good barbecue.
And moving on from Garry Maddox to the Professor Greg Maddux, also call him Mad Dog. Played most of his career with the Braves, but also spent a couple stints with the Cubs, finished with the Dodgers.
Yeah, the Cubs, they definitely know how to trade away talent, don't they?
But they got him back before he was done with his career.
Well, they didn't get the Braves days, Maddox, and he was definitely made a household name for himself with the Braves.
There's just some crazy stats with him.
I love Greg Maddux stats. There's just some athletes that you read their stats and they just keep going on and on and on. And there are some, like, stats that aren't necessarily in the record book. Maybe they are, but they're not the everyday stats, like most strikeouts, most home runs, where you read it and you think that no one's ever going to touch this. No one's ever going to do that.
On July 2nd, 1997, he won a game against the Yankees. 9 innings, 3 hits, no walks, 8 strikeouts, 1 pickoff, 1 double play, 84 pitches, 2 hours, 9 minutes. A couple weeks later, on July 22nd, 1997, he threw a complete game, 78 pitches, 36 strikes, 20 batted balls, 13 balls, 5 hits, 4 fouls against the Cubs. I don't know how you do that. I feel like now pitchers are getting to 78 pitches in like the 4th inning.
Yeah, they say 78 is about 4 innings nowadays.
Yeah, that averages less than 9 pitches an inning. That's crazy.
He definitely wasn't going to walk you.
That is true.
You definitely knew you were going to see strikes.
But his control was just incredible. He put it exactly where he wanted.
Not the record for fewest pitches in a complete game, however.
Oh.
58.
58.
By Red Barrett.
Who's Red Barrett?
Red Barrett?
What year would that be?
August 10th, 1944.
Okay. So still not totally old school, but not new school either.
9 innings, 2 hits.
Wow.
0 runs, 0 earned, 0 walks, and set the record for the quickest baseball game ever played. 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Jeez.
Barely got your popcorn.
I know. You're like, oh, I got to get a hot dog before the game's over. Oh, game's over. Greg Maddux is the only pitcher in Major League Baseball history to win at least 15 games for 17 straight seasons. Holds the record for most Gold Gloves by any player with 18. Most putouts with a pitcher with 546. And just had incredible control. He won more games during the 90s than any other pitcher. 8th on the all-time career wins list with 355. Only Warren Spahn with 363 wins recorded more career wins than Maddox since the start of the kind of post-1920s live ball era, which is pretty impressive. So therefore, he has the most wins among pitchers who have made their debuts after World War II. Only 10 pitchers have achieved both 300 wins and 3,000 strikeouts, and he's the only one to do that and have less than 1,000 walks. He ended his career with 999 career walks.
Love that 999.
First pitcher to win the Cy Young Award 4 consecutive years, matched only by number 51, Randy Johnson. During those 4 seasons, from 92 to 95, he had a 75-29 record with a 1.98 ERA, with allowing less than 1 base runner per inning.
Tough to get runs off this guy. You know, and he's throwing you strikes. It's not like he's not giving you anything to hit. He's unhittable, but he's putting it in the zone.
Yeah, you're right about he's going to throw you a strike. You just got to hit it.
Faced over 20,000 batters during his career. Only 310 saw a 3-0 count.
Wow.
177 of those were intentional walks. 109 complete games. Like some of these stats, like these guys of today. I mean, do you think we'll see 300 win pitchers anymore?
I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Did we?
I think when we were talking about Bartolo. Remember him?
Yeah, Bartolo.
I'm still fighting for that.
I got to tell you, I was watching something on Bartolo, and do you remember when Jose Fernandez died playing for the Marlins?
Yep.
And the next day or the next game, the Marlins played. Bartolo Colon was the opposing pitcher, and he just threw a meatball up there, and
D. Gordon
took him yard. And I mean, I don't care if you don't like sports.
Yeah,
this is one of those moments, you know, that just was, you know, there was a higher power, you know, on the field that day.
Especially the relationship between D. Gordon and Fernandez. And D. Gordon is not a home run hitter. So it was pretty, in wearing Fernandez's jersey, that was a pretty poetic moment for baseball.
Yeah, but you wonder if there was a little bit of unspoken sign language there from Bartolo saying, hey,
this is what's coming.
I'm going to throw you a little batting practice here. And pretty cool moment. You know, going back to Maddox, do you know who holds the record for most MLB seasons stealing at least one base without being caught?
Well, you did start this question by saying, speaking of Greg Maddux, or back to Greg Maddux.
It's Greg Maddox.
Oh, wow. Shocker.
10 years.
That's crazy.
He stole a base and never got caught. I mean, I guess if you only take one base a year, you're increasing your odds. But
yeah, and you're a pitcher, so they're not really expecting you to steal anyway. You just kind of sneak right over. He'll probably feel so proud of himself when he's standing on second base. Like, oh yeah, that's it. That's season number 7. Oh, that's good. No, good. Let's get another one next year.
Well, it's probably one of those where, you know, 10 years goes by and he looks up and he goes, hey, I've gone 10 years
Look at me.
stolen a base and never got caught. You know, it's probably didn't happen on purpose.
I wonder what the next highest for that is. Like, I know that's a pretty impressive stat for him, but probably not close to 10. Moving on to another baseball player, Fergie Jenkins spent 17 of his 19 years wearing 31 with the Cubs, Rangers, and Red Sox. Elected to the Hall of Fame in 1991 with 75.4% of the ballot on his 4th try. Won the Cy Young once. Him, along with Greg Maddux, Curt Schilling, and Pedro Martinez are the only major league pitchers to record more than 3,000 strikeouts with fewer than 1,000 walks. John Lester wore both 34 and 31 for most of his career, but had a more memorable career with 31. He had won 3 World Series, 2 for the Red Sox, 1 for the Cubs, and has 200 career wins. We kind of have talked again over the weeks about what's that next benchmark for pitchers. I have to imagine 300 wins is going to be out of the question, but 200 is a solid number in this day and age. And winning World Series for both the Red Sox and Cubs, that's a pretty unique stat as well, where both of them struggled for so long. And then I guess what Theo Epstein brought on Lester to both teams.
Yeah, Lester became that solid man in the rotation. You knew you were going to get a good outing from him. You know, you just throw a couple runs on the board and you'll probably get that win. Just don't ask him to throw to first. Didn't he have a little trouble throwing to first at one point in his career? He was throwing it out into the stands. Had a little Chuck Knobloch in him a little bit.
Did he? I remember I remember seeing one highlight where I think the ball got stuck in the glove, so he had to throw the whole glove.
Was that him?
It's happened a couple times recently. Cool. I got 2 more quick guys for baseball, getting away from the pitcher's mound, but the other end of the battery in Mike Piazza. His dad, Vince Piazza, had earned a fortune, more than $100 million in used car and real estate, attempted several times to purchase an MLB franchise. When the Dodgers, which was managed by Vince's childhood friend Tommy Lasorda, the godfather of Mike Piazza's youngest brother, Tommy, visited Philadelphia, Mike was able to visit the Dodger clubhouse, served as the bat boy in the dugout. When he was 16, Piazza received personal instruction in his backyard batting cage from one Ted Williams. The Hall of Famer praised his talent, advised him not to let anyone else change his swing, and autographed Piazza's copy of Williams's The Science of Hitting. So he grew up kind of struggling here, clearly.
Okay.
Piazza, he wasn't highly touted at all. He ended up going to Miami-Dade Community College, and his father had asked Lasorda, just as a favor, draft Piazza. So he got drafted in the 62nd round of the 1988 amateur draft as the 1,390th player picked out of 1,395. Lasorda had asked Piazza to give up his first base position and learn how to catch to improve his chances of reaching the majors. I believe he did do that, and I think, at least at the plate, became one of the greatest, probably the greatest hitting catcher of all time.
Yeah, probably. He hit a few home runs from back there. One might argue that steroids had something to do with that, but
they might argue that, but he never got nothing official there, right?
I mean, I think if you're going to ask some other players in the league, that they were pretty convinced that it was happening. A little acne on the back going on there. I love the Subway series when he broke his bat and Roger Clemens threw the bat back at him.
He was throwing the bat to the dugout, I think is what he said.
Okay.
And it just happened to miss Piazza by a foot, which then a couple years later, when Clemens is starting the All-Star game, Piazza's behind the plate. And I think, was that 2004, 2005? And gave up a couple home runs, six runs in that first inning. You wonder if Piazza was up behind the plate giving a little bit of inside knowledge to these hitters. Really make Clemens
quite
look
a history. Bad. I think Clemens even threw at his head once.
I think he hit him right in the helmet. Yeah,
he hit him.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, these guys. What an era in baseball. I mean, it was fun to watch.
The only other guy I have for baseball, you might have more, Dave Winfield. In 1973, he was named All-American and voted MVP of the College World Series as a pitcher. Following college, he was drafted by 4 teams in 3 different sports. The Padres selected him as a pitcher with the 4th overall pick in the MLB draft. He was also drafted by the Atlanta Hawks in the 5th round of the 73 NBA draft, the Utah Stars in the 6th round of the 73 ABA draft. And though he never played college football, he was from Minnesota. The Minnesota Vikings selected him in the 17th round of the 73 draft.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Unbelievable that they had 17 rounds of the draft. That'd be 17 days now.
I feel like now, they would really make it a primetime event for a month.
But wow, got drafted in 3 of the 4 major sports. I mean, I'm sure he can play hockey too.
Probably could. The North Stars, that would have been in the 70s.
6'6", 220, tall enough to play basketball, big enough to play football, and, chose to play baseball. Got over 3,000 hits, 465 home runs.
He did wear both 31 and 32 over his career, 31 with the Padres, Yankees, and Indians. He was pretty integral in the World Series win, his lone World Series win with the Blue Jays in 92, but that is not on our radar because that was with number 32. With the number 31, though, he did get 12 All-Stars, 7 Gold Gloves, 5 Sluggers. He was elected to the Hall of Fame on the first ballot with 84.5% of the vote.
I'll keep saying it. How do you not just go in with the 100? The man did enough. Was he wearing 31 in his college when he was All-American and MVP?
I believe, he went to the University of Minnesota, and I believe he did wear the number 31 there.
I mean, the man's trying to make a case against my boy Maddox here.
I'm just giving the stats. Digits Dynasty. I feel like one thing going against him while wearing the number 31. This isn't a joke either. This is a true story. When Dave Winfield was on the Yankees wearing number 31, he was up in Toronto at Exhibition Stadium playing against the Blue Jays, and I think they were warming up between innings. There was a seagull that was about 80 feet away. The ball left Dave Winfield's hand, headed towards the seagull, ultimately killed the seagull. Some guy that worked at the park had to go, kind of covered it with a towel, brought it in. After the game, Dave Winfield got arrested for causing unnecessary suffering of an animal. His manager, Billy Martin, said that's the first time Winfield's hit the cutoff man all year. And they said, I don't know what's going on with these cops. they couldn't. I guess they said the seagull, I think, ultimately was sick. Kind of shouldn't have been there. Was already looking kind of bad. Couldn't really avoid the ball at all. But he did get taken to the police station. There was a $500 bail that got him released. Eventually, the charges did get dropped, and they said it's. I guess they couldn't find any sort of criminal intent. But Billy Martin also said that when Toronto comes to town to New York next week, we're going to get their 4 starting pitchers arrested. We're going to have someone call the police, say they were molested in the hotel. So Billy Martin always thinking he's going to use the cops to his advantage, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did do an autopsy on the seagull, found that the seagull was not well before it being hit by the ball, which explains, again, why it didn't avoid the ball. Probably would have died within the next couple weeks anyways. When Winfield came to Toronto the following year, he brought a painting that he got someone to do with seagulls flying, a red maple leaf which he put up for auction. He did raise $32,000 for Easter Seals, which is a great organization. And the Yankees won that game, but Dave Winfield got arrested for throwing a baseball at a baseball game. So maybe that's why he's not going to be on our number 31 overall. I don't know. I feel like when Greg Maddux threw baseballs, he threw it with intent.
Greg Maddux does not have any bird deaths
that we know of. I think you can't speak too confidently about that.
That's about all I got for baseball.
Hey, you want to move on to basketball? Well, we got to start with Cheryl Miller. She wore number 31 for USC. Is, I think, widely regarded as one of the greatest women's athletes of all time, basketball or any sport. Of course, Reggie Miller's big sister. She won 2 championships with USC, 3-time Naismith Player of the Year, 2-time tournament MVP, 3-time Naismith Player of the Year, won the Wade Trophy. Basically, any sort of championship you can get in college. She had 3,000 points in college. Her 31 jersey has been retired by USC, male or female. USC players are not allowed to wear 31. It's got to be tough now where we have the WNBA. We have something you can go beyond college, but that she wasn't able to do that back in the day. I feel like I want to say there was talks of her potentially playing NBA back in the day. She was that dominant amongst women's basketball. Not something, obviously, that happened. But she was able to play in the Olympics in LA in 84. They won the gold. She is an icon for women's basketball.
Yeah, it really helped pave the way. You'd have to think that if she was coming out of USC today, that she would be kind of having and creating some of the same waves that are coming out of the college ranks with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and some of these other greats that are coming out of college, and really elevating the WNBA to be a league that looks like it's going to be around for a long time now. But you have to think that if Cheryl Miller was coming out and entering the WNBA, that there would be a lot of hype and a lot of talk around her.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be pretty similar to what Caitlin Clark just went through. Kind of one of the all-time leading scorers, just someone that's seemingly that much better than all your competition.
Yeah, now she did wear 31, which leads us to Reggie Miller, who also wore 31 with the Pacers. Now, he says he wore 31 because it's 13, a bad luck number in reverse.
Oh, he wanted to switch that up.
I think he also wore it to honor his sister.
I have to imagine that'd be. I feel like you don't want to admit that you looked up to your sister, right? Like as a little sibling.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's got to be one of the reasons.
Yeah. So Reggie Miller, second best basketball player in his family.
Yeah, another time mentioned on before you get to your stats and stuff. Another guy mentioned on Seinfeld. Of course, Kramer went to the game sitting next to Spike Lee. They both got into it with Reggie Miller. Kramer eventually threw a hot dog at Reggie Miller. Of course, Elaine's listening to this and she's like, "Oh, that's Cheryl's little brother." She's like, "I didn't know that Cheryl's little brother played basketball." And then Spike Lee, Kramer, and Reggie Miller went to the strip club. So that's Kramer for you.
But I miss Seinfeld, and just the little nuances. Oh, that's Cheryl's little brother.
Just a little. The writers had a little bit of just a little tidbit that now echoes for 30 years after it finished airing. But let's hear more about Reggie Miller, Digits Dynasty style.
Well, okay. Before we dive into all the Reggie Miller stats and amazing stories, he played a game in high school, scored 30 some points, I think. And he's in the car. He's pretty happy.
And his whole life, I feel like, is in the shadow of his sister, right?
Yeah.
Like
he's like, tonight's my night. I balled out. I put a lot of points on the board, And then Cheryl gets in the car and she's just kind of, her and her dad are just kind of smiling, listening to Reggie talk about his game. And then it's like, Cheryl, how'd you do? And she said, well, I had 108 points. And Reggie's like, man, come on.
You can't give me anything.
So there she was, still beating up on little bro.
I did hear, though, that he's obviously the little brother. They'd play one-on-one. She would destroy him all the time. Once she went to college, he's in high school. She came back. Time to play some one-on-one. Reggie Miller is now taller than his sister. Blocks her. No more one-on-one games ever.
That's how older siblings do. Once younger sibling says enough's enough, older sibling, ego's usually too big to lose. So they say, okay,
I feel like
I'm not playing you anymore.
I remember the day I wrestled my brother. We were, I think, going for the remote or something. I won. I don't think there was another wrestle after that.
That settled a lot of problems after that.
So I guess his record is still probably like 150-1, but
Yeah. And he'll always have that on you. But Reggie retired, the all-time leading three-point shooter, since was passed by Ray Allen and now Steph Curry. So I believe he's in third now.
He's actually, I think he's number 5 right now.
Number 5. And the way the game is going, he's probably going to continue to drop down that list.
Yeah, number 5 now. He's 80-ish ahead of Clay. He's like 150 ahead of LeBron. It's a different era, though. They shoot a lot of threes now.
Plus LeBron, he's looking like he's going to play 30 years.
Well, he's got to wait till his kid's 39 now.
He's going to have every stat by the time it's all said and done.
I feel like one of my favorite Reggie Miller events, I guess, is when he scored the 8 points in 9 seconds. Pacers trailing the Knicks by 6. Reggie with like 13 seconds left. Reggie took the inbound pass from Mark Jackson, made a 3-pointer, stole the inbound pass, dribbled back behind the arc, tied a game with another 3. On the ensuing possession, there was a foul. Starks missed the free throws, and Miller got the rebound, fouled with 7.5 seconds left, made both free throws, scored 8 points in 9 seconds, which is, again, just crazy, especially when the game's on the line. You think as the Knicks, all we have to do is just not let Reggie score any points. And Reggie scored. That was in the playoffs, and that gave the Pacers a 1-0 lead in the series. I think the Pacers ended up winning in 7 games before they lost to the Magic in the conference finals, as they did the previous year. So yeah, he never won a championship. Did he made it to the finals?
They made it to the finals. I believe they ran up against the Lakers.
A lot of teams hit the Lakers and stopped short.
But yeah, after that game in the Garden, they kind of asked him what his thoughts were, and he said John Starks choked. So he was always the needler. He could get under anyone's skin, including Jordan. Jordan hated him, and always that Eastern Conference was tough. That with the Knicks and the Pacers and the Bulls, they really had a lot to go up against. Never could quite beat the Bulls. He did have a classic game winner against the Bulls in Game 4, but ultimately lost in 7. They just needed a few more points. I think if they had 6 or 7 more points, they would have taken down the Bulls. And had they done that, you wouldn't have had the flu game from Jordan. You wouldn't have had the push off and the game winner, the steal from Malone. So it could have been the passing of the torch from Jordan to Reggie Miller, but it wasn't to be. And Reggie took a loss, and Jordan and his team went on to the finals and ultimately won the finals there. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen Reggie get one, selfishly. But
I was going to say, you're from Indiana.
I think he, is definitely one of the greatest players to play the game, and absolutely one of the best shooters. I love the Reggie Miller Spike Lee relationship.
It's a good relationship, right?
Giving him the choke sign. He may be grabbing a part of his body he shouldn't have grabbed and gesturing towards Spike's wife.
Left ear. Which is just to, again, like trash talk in general, I feel like is an art. And to be able to back up that trash talk, like that's really what's like. Anyone can say all this stuff, but to then be saying all this stuff to Spike Lee and then backing it up on the court, that's just cool.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah. And some guys, that's just how they get it going. Reggie, I think it was that same game. He'd shoot a three, he'd hit it, and he'd stare at Spike Lee the whole time.
Stare him down. He's going back.
He'd hit another one, and he'd stare at Spike Lee. So, what a fun time to watch basketball. Took some tough losses, but what a good era of basketball to watch with those guys. And then obviously was present during the Malice at the Palace. He was in street clothes and was, trying to play the peacemaker, but there's only so much that you could do on a night like that.
Yeah. It's not called the Malice for nothing.
No, he actually almost got arrested because the cops didn't know who he was.
Yeah, because what's this 6'8" guy that looks like a basketball player? What's he doing there on the court talking to all the other players?
Yeah, Reggie, definitely at the top of the list for me and probably for most at number 31 in basketball. But we got some other good ones. We have some bad ones.
Oh, well, speaking of great players, Sam Bowie is on that list. Spent 9 of his 10 years wearing the number 31 for the Blazers, Nets, and Lakers. His 31 is retired for the Kentucky Wildcats. In 84 Final Four, Kentucky met eventual NCAA champion Georgetown with Patrick Ewing in the semifinals. Kentucky was leading at the half, but then eventually Georgetown did win, ending Bowie's college career. But Bowie had 10 points, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks, and held Ewing to just 8 points and 9 rebounds with 0 blocks. So it was a pretty good Final Four. Ultimately, this had a not as good team as Georgetown. But then they're getting ready for the draft. 84 draft. The Trailblazers have the second pick. I feel like most people thought Akeem Olajuwon was going to go first to the Rockets. Of course, the Trailblazers, they have Clyde Drexler, Jim Paxson, who was a 2-time All-Star at the time in 83-84. So they don't really need another shooting guard like that prospect out of, was it UNC? There was
I don't remember his name, but
I think he turned into something.
He did okay.
Michael Jordan. That's right.
Yes.
I have heard of him.
Yes.
So Sam Bowie, of course, was drafted second. Michael Jordan was third. Ultimately, we got Charles Barkley 5. I think John Stockton went, 13? 16. And Sam Bowie had an injury-plagued career and ultimately, I think, was, widely regarded as one of the worst draft busts in history because the greatest basketball player, alleged debatable greatest basketball player of all time went one pick behind him.
Well, I mean, you said he played 10 years and didn't have a terrible career, to be picked before Michael Jordan. Akeem Olajuwon doesn't take that kind of heat, but Akeem was able to get 2 titles.
Also got a Hall of Fame,
and
one of the greatest centers of all time.
Was amazing, but wore number 31. And interestingly enough, coincidentally, Darko Milicic was drafted second after LeBron James. So they made the right choice there in the debatable conversation of
who was next.
But 3, 4, and 5, Carmelo, Bosh, Wade.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of coincidence that
history repeating
both
itself.
Both wore 31 and both became busts based upon who was drafted after.
And I was kind of thinking, like, when we were doing the research, like, sure, I feel like it's tough to compare yourself to the greatest athletes of all time, like 2 of the greatest basketball players of all time. And you kind of think like, oh, like I think they still had average 10 points over their careers. Like they're not bad guys, but as a second pick overall, I think you need to be better than a 10-point average or whatever they averaged. But their careers were nothing exceptional as a second overall pick in a year.
No, I think you're expecting a few all-star appearances, some good playoff runs, and ultimately a chance at the title. But no, did not turn out to be a very good pick for either one of them. Going down the line, we've got Kurt Rambis, one of my favorite basketball players just based upon the way he looked with the glasses and the long hair. But Kevin McHale might have other things to say.
Tried to fix that face.
Fix his face. Gave him a nice little clothesline. They were playing the Showtime Lakers, and the strategy of the Celtics was slow him down. I don't care how you slow him down. And Kevin McHale asked if he regretted that hit. He said, the only thing I regret was that it wasn't Magic or Kareem.
Which I feel like even saying anything like that now would just get you in trouble.
Like it still stands to that.
But saying it in the 80s, I think, was fine. But I feel like if you were interviewing some guy after the game in 2024. I feel like if they were like, yeah, if this was LeBron, like that would have made me feel better. I feel like there'd be a lot of flack for that.
Probably, and probably just got a personal foul, shooting two, no ejections. Then I've also got Brent Barry, who won the dunk contest in his rookie year in 1996, wearing number 31. Shane Battier, great season, great player with Duke, and had a pretty decent NBA career. And then I've got to mention Jason Terry because he is one of the all-time posterizations from LeBron. Just wrong place, wrong time.
You always feel so bad for those guys.
I mean, yeah, I do and I don't, because if they're not standing there, that it's just not as good. It's always better when there's somebody underneath getting dunked on.
Ed O'Bannon played for the Nets and Mavericks just for 2 years. His number was retired by UCLA. In his professional career, he said he played for 12 different teams in 6 countries for probably 15 different coaches. He did win the NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player in 95 when they won the national championship. A couple years later, he's playing. He sees someone playing NCAA basketball 2009. There's a game that featured an unnamed UCLA player who just happened to play O'Bannon's power forward position while also matching his height, weight, bald head, skin tone, number 31 jersey, and left-handed shot. What a coincidence, right? Isn't that crazy? But it didn't have his name, obviously. It just said number 31 UCLA, probably. Ed O'Bannon, he was the lead plaintiff in a class action suit that he filed against the NCAA and the Collegiate Licensing Company, alleging violations of the Sherman Antitrust Act and of actions that deprived him of his right of publicity. Oscar Robinson joined O'Bannon in the class action suit. Bill Russell was also among the 20 former college athletes who were plaintiffs. Ultimately, Electronic Arts and the Collegiate Licensing Company, both original co-defendants with the NCAA, departed from the case and had a $40 million settlement, and led to the name, image, likeness policy that the college sports is now using for college athletes. So it was a pretty groundbreaking lawsuit for Ed O'Bannon and college sports in general. But it's definitely literally paying off for college athletes in this day and age.
Well, they should all be thanking Ed O'Bannon.
They should.
EA Sports.
It's in the game.
Cedric Maxwell, a.k.a. Cornbread, got a pair of titles with the Celtics and was named 1981 Finals MVP, had his jersey retired, hanging up in the rafters there at the Garden, was also on that same team that Kevin McHale decided to clothesline somebody, and actually was the one that asked McHale, do you regret it on his podcast.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cedric Maxwell.
He said nickname Cornbread, and there's some pretty good nicknames with 31s. Sean Marion, nicknamed the Matrix. Darko, who you mentioned earlier, the Human Victory Cigar.
Was he though?
And then Nick Van Exel wore 31 for a little bit, nicknamed Nick the Quick, which is kind of like, that's like when your name's Jake, like you're Jake.
He was quick though.
He was,
but he wore number 9 with the Lakers, I believe.
Yeah. It's just when he wore 31.
Nick the Quick. Reggie Miller, just Miller time.
Yeah, which
do you really have a nickname?
Do you think he had to pay any money to Miller Lite anytime that was said, or he got free Miller? Maybe less filling.
Great taste.
All right, last sport. I think we've got football here. Not a ton of guys we need to mention. I mentioned at the end of last week's episode, Byron Jones. We'll just start with that, get him out of the way. Not going to be the greatest 31. I spent 5 years with the Cowboys wearing number 31. But like I said, prior to the NFL scouting combine, he was ranked as the 25th best quarterback prospect in the draft by NFL.com. He did get, obviously, an invite to the combine, and he set a new combine and world record for the standing broad jump by leaping 12 feet 3 inches, surpassing the old record by Jamie Collins of 11 feet 7 inches. Moving on to the next guy, I think when he mentioned number 40, we talked about Sean Kemp and his...
Yeah, he's got a little competition
outside here. I know it has no relevance to how he fits in our ranking, unless he wears the jersey at home, I guess, a lot. But Antonio Cromartie, we'll talk about his football stats in a minute, but he's now retired and stay-at-home dad He has 14 children. With one woman? No.
2?
I don't think it's 2.
3?
It's less than 14.
8?
But more than 6?
8.
Is it 8? Oh, my God.
14 kids, 8 women. And man, that's a busy man.
He did have a vasectomy, allegedly, after his 10th child, though. So I don't know what that means.
Can you sue? Can you ask the doctor to pay your child support at that point? How does
That's
that work?
true.
Because you've paid to not have any more children and you somehow have 3 more children?
Remember when
Did he really have the vasectomy?
That's what he told his wife. I remember, was it Hard Knocks when they visited the Jets and they had interviewed him, and I think he had just had his 14th child, and they kind of said like, "Oh, tell us about your kids," and he's going through his kids, and I think there was like 4 or 5 kids that were all 3 years old, which again, the math isn't mathing. I don't know.
Busy man. Since we're talking about numbers and we're talking about lots of children out of wedlock,
I'm guessing we're talking about
child
support is next. Yeah.
What kind of bill this guy must have for child support? So the New York Post did a little digging,
because this is like the hard hitting journalism we need, right?
this is the stuff that gets my juices flowing. This is 2015, mind you. So he was probably at the peak of his NFL career.
Okay, yeah, he's still making money,
a little bit more money,
$10 million a year.
But he only had 10 children at the time, and 8 of them were at the time out of wedlock. So he owed support $3,500 a month for each child.
Each child?
And that comes out to about $336,000 a year just in child support. And that doesn't count the kids.
I was going to say the ones that live at his house.
No, that doesn't count that. So he made $7 million in 2015, which
yeah, I guess the percentage is still you're still doing pretty good.
He still did pretty well, but still to pay out $336,000, you might want to think you're gonna make sure that vasectomy works
or add another layer of protection.
You know what I mean?
But between the lines, wearing
Good for him,
wearing the number 31. 10 of his 11 years was with 31. He played for the Cardinals, Jets, Chargers, and Colts. He had 10 interceptions in his second year in the NFL. He holds the record for the longest scoring play in NFL history after returning a missed field goal 109 yards for a touchdown in 2007. I mean, I think you kind of round down, I guess. But I think that was the one where I think he was like an inch from being out of bounds. So I think it would be like, if you're doing it inch by inch, I think it'd be like 109 yards and like 34 inches. About as far as you can get. So he'll hold that record forever unless they extend the yardage of a football field. But you won't be able to beat that. You can't get to 110. Jamal Lewis played 9 years for the Ravens and Browns with the number 31 and won his Super Bowl as a rookie. In college, he had also won a BCS national championship with the Tennessee Volunteers. When he won the Super Bowl with the Ravens, he became the youngest player to ever win a Super Bowl at the time. He was 21 years and 155 days old. And he was also became the youngest person to have a touchdown and 100 yards rushing in the Super Bowl. 2003, he of course had the 2,000-yard rushing season, won Offensive Player of the Year. That same year in 2003, he broke Corey Dillon's single-game rushing record of 278 by running for 295 yards in week 2. I think that was later on broken by Adrian Peterson with 296. That year, he led the NFL in rushing with 2,066 yards, falling just 40 yards short of officially breaking the all-time single-season rushing record, which remains Eric Dickerson's 2,105. In 1984, he became the 5th running back to join the 2,000-yard rushing club in a single season. So I mentioned he played for the Tennessee Volunteers. In the 1997 season, quarterback Peyton Manning caught a 10-yard pass from Lewis when they played the Arkansas Razorbacks. A little trivia question for you. Since a freshman year at college, Peyton has had 2 receptions in his whole career. 3 years in college, however many years he played in the NFL. Who was the other one from? You're not going to get it.
I don't know, but I would say Peyton Manning.
Oh, come on. Yeah, he got a pass. He was throwing passes. Someone got batted down. He caught it for a loss of 2 yards.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, I'm not surprised that they never called the halfback pass to Peyton.
Yeah, it was probably smart. That's why he lasted so long, and why coaches,
He was so slow.
why Tony Dungy was a Hall of Famer, because he never called that play.
Hey, he's got that on Brady. Less drops. I've got Cam Chancellor on here. 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion, and a member of the Legion of Boom. In high school, was actually a top-ranked quarterback in the nation. Threw for 2,000 passing yards and went for 500 rushing yards as he led his team to the playoffs there in high school. But worth mentioning as one of the biggest hitters in recent history. Bam Bam Cam. So another good nickname.
Donnie Shell, defensive back for 14 years with the Steelers, won 4 Super Bowl championships, Hall of Fame inductee in 2020. Scored 51 touchdowns, and he played in 201 games for the Steelers, which puts him 4th most in franchise history.
No stats, but Priest Holmes also wore 31 with the Chiefs. Had a couple good years there. Priest Holmes gave me a lot of points in fantasy football back in the day.
Yeah, I think in 3 consecutive years, he finished 2nd overall fantasy points, 1st overall, and 1st overall. He would have been a good guy in a keeper league.
That's about all I got for football.
Right, so who's your top football guy then?
I mean, I'm good with Jamal Lewis. You know, single game, season rushing yards, Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's a
national champion. It's pretty well rounded.
Yeah, I'd be good for Jamal Lewis. I feel like Donnie Shell was a close second. Pretty impressive to have 4 Super Bowls, especially on that defensive team of the Steelers. But I think Jamal, I'm happy putting him in as our number 1 football guy. Basketball, I'm thinking Stan Bowie, but also willing to talk about Reggie Miller as well. Reggie Miller?
Yeah, I think I'm going Reggie.
Hockey, I kind of want to put in Cujo just for the nickname, but I think I'm leaning towards Billy Smith.
Billy Smith.
First goaltender with a goal, 4-time Cup champion. I would say it's between him and Grant Furr, who is also 4-time Stanley Cup champion, first black inductee into the Hall of Fame. I just don't think either of them are going to make it past this round anyways.
Yeah, I'm happy to give it a 1 and 1A kind of situation there. I think they're both, could make a case.
And then for baseball, my vote's going to the professor, Greg Maddux. I think it's tough to go against him, even though we have some pretty elite players here for baseball.
Pretty crystal clear with baseball and basketball, I think there. And, when we get to the football and hockey, I just don't think there's anyone there that is going to compete with those two.
Correct.
So I'm happy to put it down to Reggie and Greg for the final 2 debate on that and see whose jersey we're going to get on the wall.
Do you want to add Piazza into that triple debate?
No.
Okay. I agree. I think my vote was with Maddox anyways. So let's chat. What do you got?
Man, this really is tough. I mean, my heart, obviously, everyone knows, I grew up a Pacers fan. Greg Maddux, he's just got really fun stats to talk about. The stats could go on for days. I think Reggie is honestly underrated with the fact that he wasn't able to get a title. Played in Indiana. That's not New York. That's not LA. It's not Boston. But was able to really build his team and put him in contention every year. Maddox has the 1 World Series. Probably should have more.
They won 14 consecutive division titles?
Yeah. I mean, his stats are hard to argue. I could definitely go either way here. I feel like my heart says Reggie and my brain says Greg.
Yeah, he's 18 Gold Glove awards, career ERA 3.16, 8-time All-Star. He did win a championship of his sport.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean Greg Maddux here.
I think that's a good choice on your part. I feel like over the weeks it's tough to kind of separate your heart and the people you've been rooting for your entire 60-year life, and the people you've been rooting for your whole the people you've been rooting for your whole life. You kind of have those, sentimental reasons for wanting to move people on. But which I know moving forward, I'm anticipating some of those debates between us and certain numbers that when they come up will be, I think, some tough battles.
Yeah, there's still some numbers out there that we've talked about that are going to be. It's not going to be as clear as some of these last couple have been.
And it's going to be tough to put the kind of personal thoughts aside and go for the stats and let the stats do the talking. But Greg Maddux, we're raising his Atlanta Braves jersey to the rafters.
Atlanta Braves number 31, Greg Maddux.
Sounds good. I like it. Another, I feel like we've been maybe, I don't know, the first couple of weeks, I feel like we were really kind of having some debates, and I think now maybe we're just actually kind of.
We've really found our stride together.
I don't know if it's us or if we're both realizing we kind of trying to get out all the extras and just focus on the numbers and make a educated decision.
I mean, it only came down to 2 tonight.
Yeah, that's true.
And 2 both great. Both legends,
great,
Hall of Famers.
And I think both just very clearly a step above everyone else in their sport.
But when we start looking at the stats, Greg Maddux has stats and stats for days. So dominant.
And so dominant, so consistent for basically his whole career. His career WHIP was 1.14. His walks and hits per 9 innings. Like, that's crazy.
Crazy.
So I think it's a good choice that we moved, that we're raising the 31 all the way up to the rafters here. Let's find out what we got going on next week. Spin the dial, and let's see what we got. Number 5.
Ooh, 5.
Oh, that's going to be a tough one.
There is no shortage of talent at number 5. The lower the number, the more there is to talk about, I feel like.
Yeah, because those are the ones that are going to just encapsulate all sports. Yeah, with some of these higher numbers, I feel like 31, you kind of maybe specialize in a goalie or defensive guy in football. But yeah, low numbers, you're going to get. There's definitely going to be a lot of guys that we have to talk about.
Any that come to mind for you?
Again, talking about our kind of our rooting interests. I rooted for Nomar Garciaparra up until
Nomar is who comes to mind for you for
he's
5.
the first one. I had his jersey.
Okay.
Went to a lot of Red Sox games. Traded him just before the 2004 championship. But then, of course, the bigger Joe DiMaggio, another Seinfeld reference we'll have to talk about next week.
Love Seinfeld in sports.
So that one will be, he's a dunker. I think he dunks his donuts in his coffee. But
another dunker, Kevin Garnett.
Another Boston champion.
Yeah, then you got Albert Pujols,
Ooh.
Johnny Bench, George Brett, Brooks Robinson, Hank Greenberg. I mean, baseball's rolling deep. I think Nicholas Lindstrom for the Red Wings.
I believe so.
Back in the few years back there, I think he was number 5.
I feel like it's gonna be a good one. There we have the greatest number 31 of all times in our books, Greg Maddux. Write us, let us know if you agree, disagree, or if there are any players that we missed. Our email address is digitsdynastypodcast@gmail.com. Next week, we are going to be looking at the number 5. If there are any players that are not to be left off the list, any stories that need to be told about players who wore the number 5, the email address again is digitsdynastypodcast@gmail.com.
I remember back when Reggie was being drafted for the Pacers, there was a local legend, Steve Alford, who had played at Indiana, and everyone thought that he should have been drafted in Reggie's place. And they ran a newscast. They had interviewed some older ladies and gentlemen, and they're all like, I'm not going to watch the Pacers at all anymore. They should have drafted Steve Alford. And instead we got Reggie. And then Reggie's out in L.A. thinking, I got to go play in Indiana. I can only imagine what he was thinking coming into Indiana. Not, he's thinking, here, I'm their number 1 draft pick.
He's from L.A., right?
Yeah. I'm going to be, king of the town, and they're all still talking about Steve Alford. And then Greg Maddux. I always love the story about Greg Maddux when he got a scuff on the ball. I don't know who he was pitching to, but he just threw something nasty. Curved right back inside, and must have curved back inside, 8 or 10 inches. And he thought, oh man, this, I'm going to be able to throw a lot with this ball. And next batter gets up and fouls it out of play.
I think I read somewhere where the average life of baseball is only like 6 pitches.
I don't even know if it's that much.
I think that's an average. That's just average.
Okay.
I saw a clip where Greg Maddux went undercover. They were trying to do some sort of photo shoot, video shoot with Chris Bryant from the Cubs, and Greg Maddux went undercover as like the sound boom guy. And the guy who was throwing batting practice got called away, and so Greg Maddux undercover is like, hey, I've thrown batting practice to my kids in Little League. Like, I got this. Chris Bryant's like, no, man, like this is dangerous. Like, you could get hurt. And he's like, oh, I'm behind the mesh here. I got it. And so he starts throwing a couple of pitches in, and Chris Bryant's like, oh man, this guy's actually got some stuff. And so Greg Maddux is like, where do you want it? He starts putting exactly where, this is well after his retirement, and he puts it exactly where Chris Bryant wants it. And he's like, oh, I'm trying out my curveball too. He throws a couple of just perfect curveballs in, and finally he reveals himself. And it's pretty amazing just that you never lose that. Your control is, he's 56 years old now, and he's still got that incredible control. Thank you for listening, and please join us next week as we count down another number on the list.